Well, me being from Venezuela, it's very common to help people. But I've noticed here, like, they're not, like, very used to, like, that human, like, interaction. Me living here for 6 years has changed me to be that way. And then now I, like, overlook, like, every time I want to help someone, I, like, you're not just as much as open as you used to be.
I feel like everyone has a routine that they're, like, used to. And if something comes up that's out of routine, then it can just feel, like, jarring.
Sometimes it's like, I wish I could help you, but I'm also not in the right state to help you or reach out to you.
I feel like everyone is probably just too caught up in their own lives nowadays. People don't really like stop anymore. So I feel like those opportunities are passed by.
I think people sometimes don't look for the opportunities because it can get overwhelming. I mean, there's nothing worse than, seeing something that you know that you're capable of, but you don't do anyway.
If something comes up and I have to change plans or help someone that needs help, I think it's important.
Just having a little more bandwidth for those inconveniences is going to expand your community little by little.
You're listening to the Rule of Life podcast from Practicing the Way. In each season, we explore an ancient practice from the way of Jesus and its relevance for the modern era. This is Season 8.
Well, welcome to episode 3 in our service series here on the Rule of Life podcast. Episode 1, we talked all about the motivation and foundation of the practice, which is love. Last week, we got into the how of how do we begin to live this out. And we talked about hiddenness, which is essential in kind of getting at the motivational structures of our heart as we move in the practice. And in today's episode, we're going to continue in that same question of how do we serve in the way of Jesus? And we're talking all about availability. And this is one of those things that I think is a key ingredient to the practice of service, moving from a project that we do to a lifestyle that we inhabit, is as we go about our everyday, ordinary lives, are we available to the Spirit's leading and operating in Jesus's heart to those around us and the needs that they might have? And so I'm wondering, just from the top, Tyler, you could take us into Jesus's teaching on the Good Samaritan. How does this parable illuminate the topic that we're going to be looking at today?
Yeah, this is such a crucial parable for availability, because Jesus, after modeling this way of being again and again before his disciples, I mean, if you think of most of the service expressions that come from the life of Jesus happen from chance encounters with random people. It's him being available to enter into need more often than him intentionally going to someone who he knows to be in need.
Yeah, I think about the woman with the issue of blood.
Sure.
Like, that's just one of many examples.
Yes, and so in the Good Samaritan, Jesus tells a story that he's lived in front of his disciples for a long time, but he tells the story in response to a question from a man who knows the law very well, saying, who is my neighbor? Like, who is the one who I'm to take responsibility for and to serve? And Jesus kind of flips the question through this parable and gives examples. It's a very familiar parable. Even people who have never cracked the Bible are typically familiar with the story of the Good Samaritan, where you have a priest and then a Levite, which is a particular type of priest, passing by a man in need.
Yep.
And then a Samaritan who was thought to be far from God, to put it lightly or politely, by most of the Jewish people at that time in history, being the one to see the need of another and choose to enter into it.
Yeah.
And so Jesus uses this parable to kind of flip the question back and say, well, who turned this man in need into their neighbor? And he's essentially saying everyone is your neighbor. The person in need is your neighbor. To be a person of service is to take responsibility for your fellow human beings by treating them as family.
Yeah.
And so this is such a crucial parable because no one has time
Right.
to stop, enter into someone's need, and help them. And the Samaritan doesn't just stop once. He enters into repeated relationship, right? He invests financially in this person. He comes back to visit them, to check on them. So we see immediate need being taken care of. We see a cost to myself in order to enter into that need, both time and finances in this instance. And then we see ongoing relationship and compassion being expressed by returning to the same need and the same person. And so in this story, Jesus is showing us a picture of what it looks like to be a person who is marked by service. And this is what the intentional practice, or as you put it, the project of service, is meant to do to us over time. That's the question that we have to come back to again and again with spiritual practice. So when it comes to individualized spiritual practices like solitude, prayer, scripture reading, we're tempted to ask, how do I do it?
Right.
Instead of what is it meant to do to me?
That's
With
good.
service, we're tempted to ask, what is it meant to do to you? Instead of what is it meant to do to me?
Right.
Like, how is this meant to bring the kingdom into the world? And again, Jesus is flipping back the question to say, no, what are all of your projects of service? Who are they meant to make you over time?
Right.
The sort of person like this Samaritan who sees need, takes responsibility, and enters into it. And that's what we want to explore.
The service practice is designed to be run in your church, small group, or community. It combines teaching, conversation, and exercises, all designed to help orient our lives outward in serving love in the way Jesus modeled for us. Over 4 sessions, the service practice helps your community take simple steps towards service in the ordinary environments and unexpected encounters of everyday life. The service practice is completely free, thanks to the generosity of monthly givers in the circle and other givers. Available now at practicingtheway.org.
Next up, we have a conversation between Tyler and Edwin Colon. Edwin is the senior pastor of Next Step Community Church in Brooklyn. Edwin, along with his wife Liz, started Next Step as a Bible study in their kitchen where they reached out to people suffering from drug and alcohol addiction in their area. Edwin and his family have spent many years faithfully loving and living among those in need in Brooklyn. Given that Edwin served in the same borough as Tyler in his time in New York, and the two of them became good friends, it seemed right to hit record for their reunion. Here's their conversation.
So, Edwin, I'm here to talk with you about the aspect of service that we're calling availability, which is more or less, what we see so much of from Jesus, both in the parables that he tells in the Gospels and the way that he lives his life, like the parables that he lived or became, often are just chance encounters with random people where Jesus allows himself to be interrupted to enter into the suffering of someone else. And then something miraculous comes of that. The best example would be the Good Samaritan, or at least the most broadly known example. And I know that that is a big part of your story, just allowing yourself to be available and interrupted. So could you maybe, while I've known you for decades, could you maybe share with all of those who are going to be eavesdropping on our conversation one instance in your own life? Could you take this from the first century ancient Near East and put it into modern day Brooklyn and say, what does it look like to go about life in the modern West and be available to the needs of other people?
That's a great question. And that thing about being interruptible is a big deal, right? Because it takes out like my priorities for what I think should be my day and what productivity looks like in my life. and it hands it over to someone that I say I trust, but sometimes don't trust, right? Like Jesus, right?
Yeah.
And I go, I trust you with my calendar so long as you are in agreement with how productive I'm supposed to be.
Well, let me stop you for 1 second, because I feel like you're even touching on a philosophical shift
Right,
that most people are unconscious of,
right.
that I think we have to become conscious of if we're to become available.
Yeah.
And it's this. I really struggle with this.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed, like, I think if you haven't asked yourself this, everyone should ask themselves, what for me constitutes a well-lived day? Like, what have I subconsciously decided is the aim or the definition of a well-lived day?
Right.
And for me, I've subconsciously decided a well-lived day is a productive day. Getting a lot done feels good to me. It makes me feel accomplished. It makes me feel intentional, all those sorts of things. But what I've noticed is if I think like more deeply, what do I actually believe constitutes a well-lived day? I would say love. That's the point of life, to give and receive love freely. So it seems that availability starts with day in and day out, naming. There is a natural impulse in me that wants to measure today's worth on a false metric. So I have to redecide this morning, in partnership with Jesus and the Spirit that he gave me, that I will live for love today.
Tyler, that's so good what you just said, because I know that for me, every day has its own scorecard. Every day has what victory looks like for me. And here's the thing, my priorities and the victories of the day have to be given to someone. And they're either going to be given to me, which quite frankly, I prefer, or they're going to be given to Jesus. Or if I'm in an unhealthy place, they'll be given to someone else. Like, a teacher that I'm trying to impress, a boss that I'm looking to like me, a spouse that I have to get the approval of. But they're going to be given to somebody. And so the question is, can I give it to Jesus? And so as I give that to Jesus, then it's just like, oh, is Jesus opening a door for me to be on his schedule as opposed to mine? And so, like, for instance, yesterday, and this happens almost every day, a woman called and she shared that she had experienced domestic violence. She has 5 kids. She's needing to be moved. She's right now in a shelter, and she needs to be moved to a more stable place so that, and I'm not kidding, so that she can have surgery on her heart, because they won't allow her to have the heart surgery that she needs unless the kids are in permanent residence. They can't be in the system. And so that's an incredibly dramatic moment that's obvious. I don't know that anybody's presentation or deadline or work or meeting is more important than just pausing and just going, Tony, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're going through this. Can we just pause and cry together and talk about this and feel the weight of this? And even as I just said that, and it was just a few words of identification and just like acknowledging that she's going through a lot, she just started to weep and just share more of her life and more of her hurt and all that stuff. And I could either want to hurry her through that moment, or I could stay on Jesus's schedule. And that's an obvious one. But there are others where it's earlier this week. So, like, you know this about me. On Mondays and Wednesdays and Saturdays, I'm either literally giving a plate of food to the hungry, or I'm giving a bag of food to the hungry, the homeless, the addicted, the poor. And you know that we do
through the ministry of the church that you pastor.
Yeah. And so, and serving the marginalized, the poor, the homeless, the needy. That's it's an inconvenient uh, um, service. Like the people aren't on your schedule, and
Sure.
and so like when I sit down with, say, for instance, John and his girl, and they're on mega doses of methadone, I sit down at the table because I feed them, and then I have to come upstairs and start working on the sermon and do all that stuff. And sometimes it's not like that. Like it was on Monday, where I just had to sit down and they're sharing with me their desire to come to church and how much they love and being served here at our church. But right now they're struggling with the dosage of methadone that they're on, and just being able to hear how they're struggling getting off methadone, but their desire to get clean, and being able to just sit with them and just talk about what steps can be made and how they need to talk to their doctor and what they can say at the methadone clinic. It takes time. And again, we're back to this idea of whose schedule is it anyway? And if I'm trying to prove something to other people or myself or is it Jesus's schedule?
Yeah, I want to jump in here and pause because I think that so many of us as followers of Jesus, we live in this pendulum shift that paralyzes us, where we're uber intentional, our lives are really disciplined, we're living certain prayer rhythms, scripture reading rhythms, things like that. We're going to work, we're coaching the kids' sports team, or whatever. We're investing in this other ministry, and our lives are packed to the brim with really good stuff.
Yeah.
And then we hear a story like yours and we think, all right, I've got to create margin and just be available. And we shift to the other direction. And I wonder if you'd share a little bit about your early days following Jesus, because I know you took some pretty radical steps toward living radically available. And I wonder if you'd share about your own journey of finding maybe this is too far from for the stage of life I'm in, and finding a balance with your unique vocation, your unique personality, your unique opportunities and availability and life stage and family structure and everything like that. Because I think everyone needs to go on that journey of going, what does it look like for me to be a responsible human being in the world, to the commitments that I've made, and to live on Jesus's schedule, as you're terming it?
I remember going to a church service, and the pastor said, the pastor goes, when you feed the hungry, clothe the naked, house the homeless, when you visit the imprisoned, when you give a glass of water, Jesus takes it personally. And I was so new in the Lord that I thought that everyone simply did what the pastor said do. I was too new to realize that nobody did what the pastor, that it was like, everybody was like, wow, what a great thought. What are we going to have for lunch? I really thought that you were supposed to take seriously when the pastor preached from the God's word. And so I literally went home, and my wife, who's an angel, we lived in a really cramped bedroom, and I would get the homeless, the addicted, and I would invite them into my house. I would sleep on the floor with them, and Edwin and my daughter Serenity would sleep with my wife, because I'm crazy, but at least I'm not super stupid. And so they would sleep together. I would sleep on the floor with them. We would wake up at around 4 a.m, and I would do this devotional, right? So I would read it and then I would expound on it. Now, after I finished doing that, we would fake pray for about 2 hours. And you know what I mean by fake prayer, right? We would bow our heads, close our eyes, and then just like doze off, really, is what we would do. And then by 6 a.m, everybody would leave. I would go to work, go study the Bible, read the Bible on my own, on the trains, come back, and I would go to sleep at 11 or 12 at night, and we would do it all over again. And so that was like an 18, 19-hour cycle that I was on. That was that was necessary and important for the forming of my soul and part of my process of growth. I wish I wasn't as stubborn and thick-headed as I was, because I could have learned earlier on that that wasn't as healthy as I could have been. And so,
Did you have a moment of clarity where you realized this is unsustainable? And
yeah,
what was that?
yeah. There's
Yeah.
a physical breakdown, there's an emotional breakdown, and then there's a nervous breakdown. And we don't bounce back easily from the nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
I had both. And
Okay.
what wound up happening was through a mutual friend of ours, started to read about being emotionally healthy and what
Yeah.
units were and what
Yeah.
boundaries were. And so I had to go from that sort of available at every second, every moment, because Jesus, I just want to meet Jesus every second of every day. I want to give Jesus a glass of water. I want to visit him. I want to love him. I want to kiss him. I want to smell him, even if he smells bad. I want to be around Jesus every second of the day because that's where Jesus said he would be.
Yeah.
To going, okay, there's I have a limit even to that. And so the Lord started to swing the pendulum in a more healthy way that at least my body could sustain.
We should be very clear. You're not prescribing your rhythms to anyone else. This has to do with your family structure, your personality, your call, your vocation, everything like that.
Yeah.
So everyone has to take into account the commitments that they have made in their life.
Yeah.
But I think hearing someone else who's gone through a process like you can be helpful and instructive as an illustration for going through your own. So for you, not that you've arrived, but at the current moment, what does it look like for you to intentionally make yourself available and live on Jesus's schedule and fulfill your commitments in a healthy way?
Yeah. So there's, for me, and if I could just say this, whatever it might look like for all of us, it should look and it probably should feel slightly more uncomfortable than we would like. Like whatever it looks like for the single mom, for the, the dad who's working 2 jobs, for everybody, it's going to look like something. But whatever it looks like, I know it doesn't look comfortable. For me, because I am so selfish and so self-centered and desire my way and my comfort above all other things, I have to premeditate times where I know I'm going to be interrupted in our opportunities to serve. So for me, it looks like a soup kitchen on Monday morning, Wednesday morning. It looks like a food pantry on Saturday morning. I make 12-step meetings. And so I always give myself about an hour to an hour and a half after the 12-step meetings for newcomers and people who are just coming around so that I could spend time with them. And so that's what that looks like for me. So it's premeditated, it's scheduled, it's a part of my life that if I just do what is on my schedule, I think I'm on Jesus' schedule when I'm doing these things. And then there's also these rhythms that I have set up so that I can just have my soul rest in the lap of Jesus, so that I don't become bitter, because I've become bitter in loving others. I've become a person who could care less when I'm caring for others. And so if I'm going to avoid that, my soul needs rest. And if that's the case, then I'm going to have to set up rhythms and schedules, just like I set up rhythms and schedules for serving others.
Yeah. Man, that's such a good word. What's coming to mind for me is if someone's listening to this and they're just overwhelmed with where to start, they're thinking about rewiring their whole schedule, I would say just start here. Start where we started the podcast. Just every morning, sit with Jesus and surrender whatever that false measure of worth is that you want to impose on the day, or that one that is actually rooted in self-gratification. So like I said, is for me productivity. And say, Jesus, would you help me to live today for love?
Yeah.
To receive your love through others, and to freely give your love to others.
Tyler, I found it so helpful in your conversation with Edwin when you guys started to talk about how one of the things that often is unconscious that needs to become conscious is how we define a well-lived day, and how each of us has to become aware of the metrics that we use to define a well-lived day, and making the daily decision. I think your language was waking up every day and deciding again that I will live for love today. It's so helpful. And I'm wondering if we could just get really practical here for a moment. What are some of the factors that you think we should consider when it comes to availability? Is there a grid that we can begin to think through so that we can step more fully into this?
Yeah, everyone is going to naturally be kind of magnetized to one side of the spectrum, either to an over availability, which is what Edwin was expressing was kind of his starting place of maybe doing so much that he got to an unhealthy place in the name of service. And others of us with equal good intentions might be too protective of our
we're
time
not even aware of the
space.
needs around us.
That we say no to needs we're being invited into. So maybe first just understanding which of those do I naturally gravitate to, which side would be helpful to be aware of, and then to work toward balance, to a healthy expression of being a person of spontaneous or interruptible service. Would include, I would say, as far as a grid, to think about these things, to think about my personal limits, my opportunities, and my resources. So when I say limits, I really mean what relational commitments have I already made? Because we don't want to violate certain relational commitments in the name of new ones. So that would be things like, are you married or single? Do you have children? And if so, what are their ages? And therefore, what is required of you as a mother or father? Do you have commitments to your local church community, to others who might be dependent on you, or to whom you've made deep friendship commitments to? Those sorts of things are important to consider. Those are limitations on your life. And limits set us free. They don't imprison us. So when we are willing to submit to our limits, we clarify the contribution that we can make. And when we are not willing to submit to our limits, we inevitably react to the last thing. We spread ourselves too thin and then react by pulling away. And then we get inspired again or feel guilty, and we react by spreading ourselves too thin, and we live in this chain reaction. So to embrace my limits is actually to concentrate the potency of my service in a way that sets me free and allows me to be who God has made me to be. So there's limits. And then there's opportunities. Everyone has different opportunities that God has naturally walked them into. Let me just name a few of my own, and maybe this would inspire thoughts that others have. I have an opportunity with my neighbors because I have small children, and at this age and stage of life, there are lots of other parents getting together for kids' activities. Baseball teams and school PTA events and, all that kind of thing. So my neighbors are really woven into my life. And a number of those neighbors have particular needs that I've noticed. So there's opportunities I have right now relationally with those who live nearest to me. I also happen to live very near a senior living facility, and I've not noticed another senior living facility anywhere in the large subsection of the city that I live in, and I'm right across from it. So I'm just paying attention to that. I also happen to live very near a large houseless encampment in my city. So there's opportunities that I happen to be proximate to. I didn't go seeking those opportunities. They're just near me where I live. And then finally, I would say, what resources do you have? And I mean, think about the financial resources that God has entrusted to you, the natural skill set that you have that may be helpful. Examples of this would be when I was living in New York City, there was a coffee shop right next to our church that got inspired by some of the justice ministries of our church and decided to start offering free barista training for students who were dropping out of high school at a failing local high school that was nearby. Because to know how to make a latte is a unique skill that they felt they could teach that would set someone up to make a decent living going forward and to get a job. And so think about things like that. Do I happen to know how to play an instrument? Do I know how to write code? Do I know, those types of things? And how might I take those skills, the resources God has given me, and use them for the sake of others? So when you work through those three things, then I would say there's your Venn diagram. Limitations, resources, and opportunities. What lives at the center of that? That's the Lord's invitation for you to step into service.
So good. That's so practical. And one of the things that is a thread through all of that is this posture of awareness as you're going about your everyday, ordinary life, of just being aware to who's in front of you, what's around you, and paying attention. That's so helpful.
So much of following Jesus is just taking seriously the value that he places on your life. It's just actually believing that everything God has entrusted to me is purposeful and is for the sake of others. It just, if you were to entertain that thought as actually being true, then what should you do? Following Jesus is really that simple at the end of the day.
I love that. I'm thinking about the person who, like Edwin, and you mentioned this, who they're going about their life and they're so attuned to the need around them and they are moving towards it, but maybe they're over-indexing in a way. I'm curious to get your thoughts on how to practice discernment in meeting the needs of those around us like Jesus did. I just think about how something that my friend Ashley reminded me of is like, Jesus didn't stop for everyone.
Right.
But to serve like Jesus means you don't stop for no one. So I would just love to get more of your thoughts on how we discern that out.
Yeah, so let me just give, I feel like we could talk about this for hours. So maybe one really practical help would be to name, what are a few insufficient fuels for a life of service? And I would say anger, pity, and over-functioning. So anger meaning a lot of what goes by the name justice in our society today is actually like anger being expressed through trying to make things right. So if you're angry, great. But press through it to find a better base.
Right. Use the frustration as fuel in prayer for him to
go beyond the anger to compassion and love for the oppressed and the oppressor, to find a better base to work from in order to seek justice and become a person of service. Second, pity is to have compassion that is from a distance rather than from relational proximity. So pity is what I feel when I, watch a TV series or a movie and there's a character that makes me weep. I'm feeling compassion from a safe distance. Compassion is a different thing. It actually is proximate. So pity means if you feel like your heart is broken for a cause, broken for child soldiers in Uganda, but you've never actually been to Uganda, broken for, the homeless in your city, but you're not actually in relationship with anyone who's homeless in your city, that kind of thing, then I would say, you've got to get beyond pity to compassion, and that means you got to get proximate
Yep.
if you're going to become a person of service. And then the final would be overfunctioning, which is what Edwin was describing. And overfunctioning is a psychological term, usually related to a marriage, actually, where one partner, or related to a family system, where one person is overcompensating for another. It's essentially enabling someone's need to stay intact because I like the feeling of meeting that need.
Interesting.
It's allowing one party to be really high maintenance or something like that. And basically, I just want to say some of us tend to overfunction for God. We take it on us that the hope of the renewal of the world is on me. And so I must be the Savior. And I would just say there is a great freedom in realizing ultimately I am not the Savior.
Right.
The result of my service does not depend on me. And the renewal of the world does not depend on me. Have I been empowered by the Holy Spirit to continue what Jesus started? Yes. Will I make the world right? No. Jesus will when he returns as king.
That's right.
So I have the responsibility to pour myself out in loving service. Jesus has the responsibility to renew the world by love.
Yes.
And so to keep my role and his role intact is very important if we're going to be people of service.
It reminds me of your conversation with Gary in episode 1, where he talks about that paradigm that they remind themselves often of. It's God's way, it's our work, and
God's
we do it in
weight.
Jesus' way. It's so good, and we've got to keep that in the forefront.
Yeah.
I love that. You know, one of the things that comes to mind around this topic of availability is around availability and interruptibility is its relationship with our mindset towards life, and whether that is one of scarcity, which is kind of that posture of I've got to get my own and protect it. It's all on me, versus an abundance mindset, which is like, God is a good provider. He's with me. He's the one sustaining me. And I'm just so curious about that relationship, because I feel like this willingness to go about my day and allow myself to be interruptible, it requires a foundational understanding of God's abundance and his kindness and his generosity, and that at the end of the day, even if my day doesn't go the way I thought it would, I still have enough. I'm just curious if you could maybe add some color to that. How do you see that relationship between our interruptibility and having a scarcity or an abundance mindset?
I guess I would think about it as grace means everything is a gift.
Yeah.
My life is a gift. Today is a gift. My health is a gift. My relationships are a gift. My resources are a gift. My work is a gift.
Yeah.
And if something has been given to me as a gift, then day after day after day of receiving these gifts should just be increasing my certainty that there is endless generosity coming to me from my Father.
Yeah.
Maybe this is what Paul means in Galatians when he says that the Spirit within us cries out, Abba, Father. And if he has made us sons, then we are heirs.
Yeah.
We begin to really trust, like, oh, I'm an heir to the resources of heaven.
Yes.
So what have I to fear? What have I to protect? What have I to hoard? If that is the case.
Yeah.
Again, just to live like the fundamentals of the gospel are true naturally results in being the sort of person we're talking about.
Yes, yeah. And so this really is an opportunity to rehearse the gospel. And it's like as we receive that reminder that it really is all grace, that actually, I think, strengthens and increases our capacity to be interruptible on the way.
Yes. This is why service is being with Jesus, becoming like Jesus, and doing what Jesus did. Because all of it is putting into practice the things that I believe about who God is and who I am. and then getting to have relational in my life, lived out, practiced experiences of receiving that truth mediated to me through the circumstances of today and the people that I encounter.
Practicing the Way is a crowd-funded nonprofit made possible by The Circle and other givers. The Circle is a group of people from all over the world who believe deeply in the work of spiritual formation and discipleship and give monthly to see formation integrated into the church at large. I'm Kelly Pena from Hillsboro, Oregon, and I'm a part of this community. Practicing the Way resources have been a transformational roadmap for me as I learn to model my life and actions after Jesus' example, and I deeply desire for other people to experience this gift. To join myself and others in the Circle or to share a one-time gift, please visit practicingtheway.org/give.
Now we want to introduce you to Deidre. In 2023, Deidre and her community group were introduced to a refugee family of 11 in their area. What started as a once-a-month rhythm of supporting this family over time became weekly, if not daily, calls, text exchanges, and house visits to practically serve them as they adjusted to their new life in Portland. For Deidre and her community group, being available for this family was not just a nice idea, but a necessary one in order to truly wrap around them, and it helped lay the groundwork for the kind of deep relationships they all longed for.
I'm Deidre, and I'm part of Bridgetown Church in Portland, Oregon. Our community group has been together for almost 9 years and had really been challenged to be proximate to people who are marginalized. And we had tried various things and it just never stuck. After hearing a teaching at church on service, our community group was really committed to the idea of serving and finding a way to do that impacted people that are on the margins. We were introduced to a family that had immigrated from Afghanistan that were refugees by an organization in the community. And we started a relationship with a family that had 9 children that were Muslim, that didn't speak English, and that were new to the Pacific Northwest. We had no idea what that was going to look like, but felt like this was what the Holy Spirit was leading us to do. When we started meeting with this family, our commitment was the first Tuesday of the month, we would arrive at 6:30, probably stay for about an hour. But there were needs, and now we were a contact point or somebody that they felt safe asking for needs. And so sometimes it was things like our electricity is off and we don't know what to do. So I had their property manager's number in speed dial, and I would say, hey, I got this call, I got this message from the family, their electricity is off. Sometimes I would get the runaround about how they need to submit that particular complaint, and it was, not doable. So that would mean getting in the car and going over to the house, trying to figure out what was going on, looking at the fuse box and looking at, the breaker has been flipped. And so that's what the problem was on. It was like a miracle. Then the fans came on. Because, of course, they're using all these things because it's 100 degrees outside and the apartment doesn't have AC, and trying to cook and trying to have all these fans running, for 11 people. So that might not have been how we had planned to spend a Saturday afternoon, but that's what we did. I think when we started the journey, we committed to Tuesday nights, and that's what all of us were in for. But in a short period of time, there was more need, and you're doing grocery shopping, you're doing a Costco run, whatever it is to meet the needs of this family. And so we realized that this was more about serving and not about my schedule. And so if we are going to love and serve, it's not going to fit into a 1.5 hour box the first Tuesday of the month. I'm a list maker and I have schedules, and I'm very conscious of my routine and rhythms because there are a lot of things that I have to do, and I'm a planner. So for me as an individual coming into this and recognizing, this is going to be a lot more than an hour and a half the first Tuesday of the month. It was a decision to say yes, because it's not something that would fit in easily to my schedule. It's hot, your fans aren't working, you need somebody to come and figure out what's going on. I had a whole list of things I was going to do. This was my first day off in 6 days. And so it was a decision each time to say yes. So all of us have had to look at our schedules and our lives and make changes, and doing it from a place of, we want to demonstrate the love of Christ to this family. And that is more important than my list of things to do that I thought I was going to get accomplished on Saturday. So I think when we started, we were focused on service. You know, like, we're going to do these things, and looked at them as acts. But I think when you serve someone, it's hard to do that well without loving them. So I can't really separate those things. Initially, you know, going to a halal grocery store and trying to navigate what's needed, what the cost is. This a good cost? Is this a good brand? And then going to the cash register, oh my goodness, it's a man, I'm not supposed to make eye contact. You know, all of those things. You're very focused on the act. But pretty soon it was, I think this is something that she would really enjoy cooking with. Or this is something that they served us that I know they think is really special, and I can't believe I found this at the halal store. So maybe we started serving, but then we ended up loving, but then we serve more because we love them. And so I don't know how to separate those. It's been an unexpected gift. You step into something with an idea of what it's going to be like or what you have to give, and instead, it has been a blessing to get to know this family. Hard at times because of the cultural and language differences, but so much fun and unexpected to have a friendship and to have a place in this family's life. I think with our lives and our busyness, even with the kind of desire to slow and be available, we're not as available as we think. And so when something comes along that causes us to be interrupted and to deviate from our schedules and demands that we be flexible, it can seem daunting at first or difficult. But none of us had any idea when we started this journey that the outcome of being interruptible and flexible and available and being willing to step into a very different environment culturally would be a relationship that's forever. So I think I would tell my to-do list self, make room. It's worth it.
So the way that service moves from something that we just think about or talk about to a lifestyle that we inhabit is through practice. And so for this week, we're inviting people to do one unplanned act of service, which is kind of funny because we're essentially saying, hey, plan one unplanned thing to do this week. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, it does seem a bit backward, but ultimately, if we are going to become people who have it within ourselves to spontaneously enter into the needs of others, we're going to have to start by saying, this is my goal for this week, to let myself be interrupted at some point. So maybe just a couple practical tips. I would say this is mainly a commitment to a daily way of prayer that is keeping my eyes open, that I'm a prayer that I'm hoping to incarnate or actually live rather than just speak. So one of my most frequent prayers is I just ask God for power encounters. That's the language I use with him. As I am going today, I want to be inconvenienced by the need of someone else and you, Holy Spirit, to tap me on the shoulder and be like, this is it.
Cool.
And then just try to be active. So I would just suggest commit to just praying every day. Lord, would you make me aware of a need around me today? And when I become aware of it, let me receive that as your invitation. And then my counsel would be no need is too small.
It's good.
It doesn't have to be the houseless person you pass on the street corner. It could totally be that. But it could be like your coworker who seems down.
Yeah.
Or it could be your child who needs help tying their shoes again. Or whatever it may be. Just trust that the Spirit will highlight something to you and you can know, oh, this is it. And it could be huge or it could be tiny, but you're not planning that part. You're just planning to say yes when the Spirit says yes to you by highlighting a need.
So good. The thing that's coming to my mind is my husband's a musician, and something that he'll often say is spontaneity is the reward of preparation. And I think that invitation to pray for that power encounter, to use your language, it's shifting the expectation as you go about your day. You then start to just look at your day in a different way. So I think that's really helpful. Well, friends, thanks so much for joining us for episode 3 of the service series. If you found this episode helpful and impactful, we'd be so grateful if you'd consider sharing it with a few people you know who may feel the same. For our next and final episode of this season, we'll be diving into the topic that I personally was most impacted by. It's the topic of kinship. Kinship being the distinguishing and dignifying place that we are all meant to move towards as we serve and love others in Jesus' way. So we hope that you'll join us for that final episode. It's truly one of my favorites for the whole season. Now let us bless you with a benediction inspired by the words of Saint Teresa of Avila. And I would just invite you to take a deep breath with me, maybe even open up your hands as a posture of being ready to receive. Christ has no body but yours, no hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes with which he looks with compassion on this world. Yours are the feet with which he walks to do good. Yours are the hands with which he blesses all the world. So may you, like Christ, go now not to be served, but to serve.